I could really go for a bagel about now. So, after having heard great things about it, having wanted to see it for ages, it wasn't at any local theaters near me that were anything close to convenient for me to get to. I've now finally seen everything, everywhere, all at once. Oh, this movie. This is a hard movie to try and talk about for a lot of reasons. One, because it's so weird. It's really weird. And I mean that in the best way. But two, I think it's something best experienced knowing as little as possible. So I'm going to give a spoiler warning real early into this review. That this right now is not that spoiler warning, but it's going to have to happen early because the extent to which I knew anything about this, I knew generally sort of some of like the core principle that it was largely based around. But that was kind of it. I actually didn't know what the tone was even of this. And I definitely didn't know any of the specifics. And I didn't even really know who else was in it besides Michelle Yeoh. And I felt like that was the perfect amount of information to go in with. Seeing the other actors who showed up, being like, oh, nice. Realizing who one of the actors was because I didn't recognize him right off and being like, oh, nice. Seeing where things went and realizing what the tone was going to be and just, oh, this thing's a ride. It's so good. Like, here's the thing. I can't promise everyone will like it because it is so weird. But it's so unique. I feel like everybody should give it a shot. Because for me to explain why has the potential to take away some of what's really fun experiencing it. But it's one of those things where even if you don't love it, I don't think you're going to see anything else like this. And you probably haven't. And you won't again anytime soon. So I feel like it's necessary to experience just for the uniqueness and just to roll the dice on if this is a kind of unique gem weird thing that will click with you. Even if there's a shot, I think everyone should give it a try. And I kind of want to leave it at that pre-spoiler. So that's it. I loved it. It's fantastic. Oh yeah. I got to get into stuff that I consider now to be spoilery, just even clarifying what the basic premise is. So that's your warning in terms of what I would consider mid-tier spoilers. Not generally considered spoilers because I'm initially just going to talk about some of the people in the cast and what the actual core concept of the thing is. And if I feel the need to talk bigger spoilers, stuff that happens later in the movie, I'll give a second spoiler warning. But this is your first tier, sort of mid-level spoiler warning. So, this really blows Multiverse of Madness completely out of the water in terms of depicting multiverses. Like, this makes Multiverse of Madness and what Marvel in general has done with this multiverse so far look like the freaking kiddie pool. This is the ocean of possibility versus Marvel's kiddie pool paddling session that it's done with the multiverse. This dives deep into the idea and it's integrated throughout the whole thing and it lets it be so weird. I remember saying even in my review at the time that I wanted Multiverse of Madness to be weirder than it was, and it was bumming me out that so far Marvel has largely been using its multiverse as just an excuse to do basically more episodes of What If. Just, this is pretty close to our universe, just this is a little different. This is a little different. And I'm like, I'm not saying there's no good stories that can ever come out of that, but that's basic. That's super obvious. That's what everybody does with multiverses, and it's boring. This is not boring. And this is the last I'll mention of Marvel. I really hope that Marvel sees this and realizes that when they get to doing like bigger multiverse stories, like however the multiverse is going to factor into things like the eventual next Avengers movie in like phase 5 or 6 or whatever, I hope that they see this and they realize how much they have to step up their game. I want this to push them to be better. I don't think it'll ever be this good, but this should tell them, like, dudes, you are not using your premise correctly. So, I love the way this handles multiverses, in that there is multiverse traversal, sort of, but not really. Like, these people, their consciousness jumps into other versions of themselves. So it's not the traditional, like, landing in another universe like it's landing on another planet or going to another country where you're like, oh, what's different around here? It's like, no, suddenly you are the you that's there. But more to the point, you inherit immediately all the knowledge of the you that is there. So it's not like you're confused by what's going on. When you get to that other universe, you get it because you're in the you that knows how this works. And that they can use that to suddenly acquire a ton of knowledge. To, you can do a quick jump to a universe where you know martial arts. And then you come back and suddenly the you here knows martial arts. That's cool. And that's like a solid starting initial premise. And it's almost initially like, oh, okay. So it's a little bit like uploading new programs into people's heads in the Matrix. Okay, it's just a slightly roundabout way of doing that. Yeah, initially. But then we start getting really weird stuff. Like really weird stuff. Because again, you start with those basics. And also I love the detail that what you have to do in order to connect, at least as part of the process of connecting to another universe, is you have to do something in this universe that's really improbable, that's really unlikely, that you would not normally do. You have to deliberately do something that is a certain amount of improbable in order to reach it. It works a little bit like the infinite improbability drive from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, in terms of you have to know how far removed from your reality is the version of you you're trying to reach. And once you know how unlike you that is, you have to come up with an appropriately high level of improbability for something to do that jump. So like at a super basic level, when it starts, her very first jump, Michelle Yeoh's character, is just to go to a reality where instead of going left down the hall to go to a meeting, she went to the right and went into a supply closet. And that just requires switching her shoes onto the wrong feet. But then later stuff, some of the things people have to do to acquire these further out there abilities from versions of themselves that are less and less and less like who they actually are. Some of the stuff they have to do gets nuts, and it's so good. And the cast is great. Michelle Yeoh, obviously front and center for pretty much the whole thing, and she is she's always been awesome. She has this fantastic presence, and I like that. Yes, they integrate her ability to do martial arts, which she's very well known for, but like they let her act. They really let her stretch herself as an actress and play all these aspects of the same person, but also not. That said, I think the performance that really blew me away was probably Stephanie Sue. I think that's how you pronounce it. If I got that wrong, I'm so sorry. But who plays Joy, the daughter. She is clearly having so much fun, and she gets to jump between this earnest and very heartfelt performance to being frankly super creepy and incredibly sinister at times. She's really, really good at making that shift and still feeling like it's components of the same person. That's really good. And it was so bonkers to realize that the husband was Ke Huy Quan. Again, apologies if I mispronounced that. Who was Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and who has been pretty much retired from acting since the 90s. And he's really good. And he gets to just bring this wonderful amount of earnestness to this part, such sincerity that he brings. He's so good. And as the instant I recognized James Hong, I'm like, oh yeah, because he's always good. And Jamie Lee Curtis, it took me a hot minute to recognize, because initially when we meet her, like, I don't remember ever seeing a movie where she was allowed to look just kind of frumpy. like that. And it took me a second, but then I'm like, oh, she's having fun. Like everybody is just having such a blast doing this. You can tell. And it's weird because the whole thing is bizarre on a level that could have been really artsy fartsy, but it has such energy and such just joy and just a sense of everybody was completely game for all the nonsense that was going on, that it doesn't have that sense of self-importance that often comes with more high-minded attempts to tackle things like this. This feels like it just wants to tell a really interesting story in a really fun way. It doesn't feel pretentious, and given its premise and some of its theming, it should, but it doesn't. And I love that it makes the very smart decision to ground this grand concept of a multiverse around this family and around these relationships, so that we have a core thing that not only the logistics can circle around, but the emotional aspects of the story can all circle around this family. That is a great way to keep the ideas from spinning off into the abstract and losing the connection to them. Keep it grounded on these people with these phenomenal performances. And yeah, you can follow this. Even if you can't explain what's going on, you can follow it because you can follow them. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And okay, I suppose I would consider this to be bigger spoilers because I got to talk about just some of the specific nonsense. So this is your final spoiler warning. And like when I say spoilers, it's not like, I'm blowing huge Swiss, but like you should be caught off guard by a lot of what goes on. And if you stick around for more, some of the stuff that really caught me off guard, you're now going to know is coming, and it'll be a lesser experience if you haven't seen it yet. So, final spoiler warning. Hopefully, whoever's left are people who have already seen the movie. So here we go. First of all, the everything bagel. That is so stupid, it's genius. That she has the ability to get in touch with literally everything across the entire span of multiverses. And she puts it on an everything bagel that basically becomes a multiversal singularity that is collapsing realities. Because not everything is meant to be in one place like that. Kind of like how one person is not meant to experience that much. That's what has put Joy into this position. It's what's really beautiful about it. And this is, sort of really where it nails its ending. Because Joy's despair and her nihilism is rooted in the idea that once she's connected to the whole of the multiverse, and she can see every possibility that could have ever happened, including a ton of universes where humans never even became a thing. And when they show up there, she and her mother are rocks. It's so good. But that weight of that understanding of everything has been done. Everything is happening. Therefore, nothing is unique. And nothing is special, and nothing matters. That's a crushing weight. That's a pretty understandable response to an existential crisis. And that she has the line like, nothing matters, so we can do whatever we want, as a justification for her making the bagel. And I love that later on when Evelyn is trying to hold on to her and reconnect her with her and keep her daughter from falling down that pit of existential despair, she repeats the same thing. Nothing matters. We can do whatever we want, meaning we can be better. We can do more. We can work on this and we can be a family. It's beautiful. And it's an acknowledgement of, like, it's not an invalidation of the nihilism that Joy is feeling. And Evelyn, Michelle Yeoh's character, expresses all the stuff that, like, I don't suddenly not have a problem with all these things about you and about our relationship, but I love you anyways. Because none of these problems, yes, they exist, but they don't matter, so we can do anything and we can still be a family and I can still love you. It's so beautifully done. And again, it is rooting the story in this family, in these emotions, in these connections through all this absurdity. Absurdity like people shoving awards up their butt plug shaped awards up their asses to attain better fighting skills. Oh, this is an astounding film. I don't know what to compare it to. I know what to compare, like, tiny aspects and pieces of it to. Like, I made the comparison to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I could make comparisons of certain elements to other things, but, like, as a whole, as a package, I can't think of anything else like this. And I am so glad I finally saw it. Everything Everywhere All at Once. Have you seen it? What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments and let's talk about it. Patreon's what pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living. And any amount you can help is a great assistance, but even if you can't, like, share, subscribe also help. And you don't even really have to worry too much about that, because at the end of the day, we take a relaxed attitude around here. Nothing matters, so we can do whatever we want. Just come on back next time you need a break, if you want to. Time to give my thanks to my highest supporting patrons. That would include Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfullah, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Oliver B., Melinda Walters, Emu Delkey, Theotha Boyd, Becky Sparks, Fernabi Likes the Poodle, Zach, Idolin, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Adam RDL Taylor, Shane Ross, Shaylee Gourlay, Brendan LaRose, and TT. If you want your name said while these guys try and distract me, consider looking at the rewards on my Patreon.